If you could take your seats, please. You would have noticed a bit of activity just before the birthday cake, which you take, but you will all get a piece later on. Don't you worry about that. Thank you very much, everybody. So I'm Alan Vallance. I'm the Chief Executive here at ICAW, and I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon session and reflect a little bit on what happened this morning. Today's event, jointly hosted by ICAW and CIOT, marks a significant moment in HMRC's history. So we're reflecting on the changes that have been made over the past 2 decades, and this afternoon we're going to consider what a sustainable and successful tax authority and tax system look like for the second half of the 21st century. I hope you've all had a productive and an engaging morning, and as we reconvene, I wanted to take a moment just to reflect on some of the insights that have been gathered so far and set the stage for the discussions ahead. So this morning, Lord O'Donnell delivered a compelling keynote speech, followed by a thought-provoking panel discussion, which was chaired by Charlotte Barber, featuring David Gorg, Penny Tuck, Nick McPherson and Heather Self. Their reflections on the past 20 years have set a strong foundation for this afternoon. Some of the insights: it was a time of radical thought. We now have that opportunity again with a majority in Parliament. Input from the private sector was really important. Someone leading from the private sector was leading that change was really important. We had Parliament on side. Geography mattered. Moving HMRC to be near to number 11 was really important. And some other points from the first panel. The relationship between HMRC and HMT is like a marriage and needs to be worked at. We must cherish with HMRC the technical expertise as well as the admin side of things. And we have to maintain human involvement as well as take advantage of technological developments. I've been given a list of lots of insights from this morning's sessions, and I'm not going to read them all out, but what I did want to do was kind of highlight some common issues, because there were lots of things that came out from the different sessions that crossed over. So the first point was around taking pressure off the tax authority by simplifying the tax code. Are there particular pieces of legislation that drive customer service demand? There was a lot of praise for the app. We all have a good app. And also that one login, single sign-on, making it really easy for people to engage was really important. There were comments about HMRC putting more trust in agents to get things done, and many of our members act in that capacity. A lot of recognition of the importance of a single customer record, single login for individuals, and other countries already do that. I have to say, I'm a British Australian. I've had a tax file number for decades now, but that came out in the conversation quite a bit. Digital communication was important, but recognising that it needs to be secure. Some of the other things came out. Collaborative working between HMT, HMRC and the professional institutes is really key. The purpose behind a policy needs to be established more clearly, and it needs to be communicated more effectively. This could help to reduce the number of tax cases. And there needs to be more clarity on tax simplification being embedded into policy making. All of these insights are going to be instrumental in shaping our discussions this afternoon. They highlight the challenges, the opportunities that we face as we work towards a more effective and efficient tax administration authority. Just before we dive into this afternoon's agenda, I wanted to mention the importance of a modern tax authority. In today's rapidly evolving world, having a modern tax authority that is fit for the future is absolutely critical. And both ICAW and CIOT have been vocal about the need for a tax system that is efficient, that is transparent, and anticipates the needs of taxpayers. So let's get into this afternoon. I'm delighted to introduce firstly our keynote speaker for the afternoon, James Murray, MP. James has been serving as the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury since July 2024. James has also taken on the role as Chair of the HMRC Board, marking a change in the relationship between HMRC and HMT. Prior to this role, James was the Shadow Financial Secretary for 3.5 years. And this afternoon, he's going to talk about the measures that are being taken to cut waste, improve service standards, promote growth, and tackle the promoters of tax evasion schemes. And also provide insights into the future of HMRC. After the speech, James will join the second panel on stage, which will be chaired by my colleague Ian Wright. So Please join me now in welcoming James to the stage.
Thank you very much for inviting me along here this afternoon. And it was a pleasure just to not exactly cut, but to be photographed with the HMRC birthday cake over there. I think you know you're at a tax event when people start making jokes about whether it's VAT exempt or not. So definitely know I'm amongst friends here today. But I'm really honoured to be invited along here today at this event to speak as we mark the 20th anniversary of His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And when I was thinking about giving this speech to you today, I wondered what my predecessor might have said at a similar event 20 years ago when HMRC was just being founded. Of course, if I'm being strictly accurate, there was no post of the Exchequer Secretary in 2005. So whatever I assert my predecessor might have said, you can't fact check that or technically disprove it. But it made me think how things would have been different 20 years ago, because 20 years ago, when HMRC was created, the practice of online filing for self-assessment was still something new. It was just 5 years old. Back then, ministers certainly would not have been considering how to add new functions to the HMRC app. The first banking app was still 5 years away. And at the same time, families across the country would still face the prospect of filling in paper forms for child benefit for the whole of their children's childhood, with HMRC's online solution still being 18 years away. But however much things have changed and the way that people interact with the tax and customs system has changed in the last 20 years, the next 20 years, or even the next 5 years, offers the chance for far greater change than we have seen in the past. And so, as technological opportunities accelerate, I as a minister, and we as a government are determined to go further and faster to modernise HMRC. But that modernisation is crucial to improving value for money, to collecting revenue more efficiently, and to supporting economic growth and the Prime Minister's plan for change. So this is not just a year when we reflect on HMRC's work over the past 20 years. It's also a crucial year to start delivering the future of the UK's tax and customs system. This is a year in which we will go further and faster to make sure businesses and individual taxpayers spend less time on tax and customs administration and more time delivering the growth that will put more money in people's pockets. We are determined to cut waste, to challenge old ways of doing things, and to innovate at pace. We were elected to deliver change, and that is what we will do for people and businesses across the UK. Now, last September, the Chancellor announced that I would take on the role of chair of the HMRC board, and it's the first time a minister has taken on that role. That change has brought new opportunities for combining the political mandate on which my colleagues and I were elected with the insight of non-executive directors, the executive committee, and of course the expertise of officials right across HMRC's offices in every region and nation of the UK. I've been determined to work with other members of the board, the executive committee, and HMRC's whole workforce to promote a culture of and an appetite for greater innovation at HMRC. And a key part of this is learning from some of the most successful British businesses, incorporating their best practice and their approaches to change into HMRC. And so to that end, I've led teams of senior HMRC officials to meet with organisations including Octopus Energy, Barclays, NatWest, John Lewis, and Centrica to find out about how they do business, to learn how they innovate in the digital space, how they create new solutions through a test and learn approach to problem solving. And as a result, HMRC is now testing new ideas inspired by what we have learned from the private sector through operational sandboxes that have been running since the autumn. At the same time, I've been working closely with software developers like Sage and Xero to launch our plans to roll out e-invoicing across the UK and working collaboratively to develop and deliver Making Tax Digital. And I've been listening carefully to intermediaries, including agents like many of those who are in the room today, who play such a key role in the tax system and know how a fair, efficient and modern tax system should be. And that is how I believe HMRC will get ready for the future, by combining my and my colleagues' clear political mandate to deliver our plan for change with the expertise of officials in HMRC and the insight of businesses across the UK who are our partners in growing the economy. Now, I know that when we talk about the need for change at HMRC, the subject of phone lines and waiting times does not take long to come up. By the end of last year, though, day-to-day performance had improved. We met our call handling target during the final quarter of the last calendar year, and calls to our dedicated agent line were being answered 30% more quickly. It is inevitable that we will face exceptionally busy periods like the self-assessment peak, but I am determined that we will see increasingly consistent performance over the next financial year. And I can announce today that following consultation with professional bodies and practicing agents, including some of you in this room, from the end of this month, HMRC will launch a new service to provide a dedicated escalation route for agents with self-assessment and PAYE queries which are over 4 weeks old. A new dedicated team of experienced technicians and advisors will adopt a once-and-done approach, taking an end-to-end ownership of cases and maintaining regular communication with agents. This builds on changes that we announced last October, where we combined PAYE and self-assessment queries, introduced a dedicated option on the agent's dedicated line for repayment progress chasing, and launched agent web chat. These improvements have been designed with you to address concerns that agents have raised with us, to enhance service efficiency, and to strengthen HMRC's relationship with agents through a more accountable and streamlined approach. But I know that improving customer service cannot be achieved simply by recruiting ever more people to answer the phones. We receive millions of calls every year from people who need to complete simple tasks, including over 200,000 calls from people asking for their national insurance number, something they can find in seconds on the HMRC app. And so, as well as making sure that those who need to speak to an advisor can do so, we are determined to accelerate the development of HMRC's online and app services and to drive more people towards using them. Now, the HMRC app, which we heard about earlier, already has more than 4.7 million users, 2 million more than last year. We are testing the potential of generative AI to point customers towards the advice they need on gov.uk. We know that more automated and intuitive digital services are a win-win. They make it quicker and easier for people to get their taxes right, provide a better experience for customers, and ultimately mean we're collecting more of the tax that is owed. And that is why, from April, we will go further by launching a new PAYE portal, a new, simple way for 34 million taxpayers to check the data that HMRC holds on their employments and pensions, to notify us of any changes, and to find simple explanations to understand the impact of changes to their tax code. And it is also why today we are confirming our intention to raise the income tax self-assessment reporting threshold for trading income from £1,000 to £3,000 within this Parliament, and align this with the new reporting thresholds for property and other taxable income. This change to the trading income reporting threshold could lift 300,000 customers out of the need to file a self-assessment tax return. Around 90,000 of them will have no tax to pay, and so will not need to report their trading income to HMRC at all, whilst those who do owe tax will be able to use a new, simple online service to do so quickly and easily. This change will avoid wasting customers' time, wasting HMRC's time, and it will help those people who are currently required to submit a tax return and potentially face late filing penalties, even though they do not owe any tax. It will free up traders' time spent on tax administration so that they can instead spend their time growing their businesses, making it more of a success and contributing towards the economic growth that is at the heart of our plan for change. Now, underpinning that plan for change are, of course, sound public finances. As you'll know, at the budget last October, our commitment to restoring economic stability and fiscal responsibility involved difficult decisions on welfare, spending, and tax. In that context, it was even more essential than ever for us to do everything possible to close the tax gap before considering any changes to tax policy. Unpaid tax not only impacts the Exchequer, but it also puts businesses who pay the right tax at a competitive disadvantage, and it hurts economic growth. And so at the budget, the Chancellor made clear that we are determined to go further and faster to close the tax gap and to collect more of the tax that is due. The Chancellor announced the recruitment of an additional 5,000 new compliance caseworkers and funding for 1,800 debt collection officers over the course of this Parliament. And I'm pleased to be able to say that around 600 new compliance staff will start work this month. At the same time, HMRC will increase the use of AI to improve compliance targeting and help staff productivity, As announced at the autumn budget, the government is investing £154 million to modernise HMRC's debt management system to help us more effectively tackle debt. We will overhaul our approach to offshore tax compliance by the wealthy by recruiting new experts in private sector wealth management and deploying AI and advanced analytical techniques to help identify and challenge those who try to hide their wealth wherever they try to hide it. And at the same time, we're cracking down on some of the worst behaviours like phoenicism, where rogue directors abuse the insolvency regime by deliberately putting their businesses into insolvency to write off what is owed, both to businesses and HMRC. To tackle that problem, HMRC, Companies House and the Insolvency Service have agreed a joint plan to tackle rogue directors who abuse the insolvency regime. We will do so by increasing the use of securities, where HMRC demands upfront payment of tax from new companies to double the amount of tax protected by 2026-27. We will make more directors personally liable for the taxes of their company and double the issuing of liability notices by value during 25-26. And the plan will also increase enforcement sanctions by the Insolvency Service, including 100 more director disqualifications in 26-27 in cases involving phoenicism. Now, more widely, I'm also glad to announce today that HMRC will launch a new reward scheme for informants later this year, targeting serious non-compliance in large corporates, wealthy individuals, offshore avoidance schemes. This scheme will take inspiration from the successful US and Canadian whistleblower models, and it will complement our existing rewards scheme with informants rewarded with a percentage of tax taken as a result of their actions. And this spring, we will publish a consultation on a package of measures to tackle promoters of marketed tax avoidance, whose contrived schemes deprive vital public services of funding and leave their clients with unexpected tax bills, alongside our draft legislation on our plans to prevent abuse by non-compliant umbrella companies by April 2026. These significant changes in policy, alongside the investment in our technology, our people and their skills, will make it as easy as possible for individual taxpayers and businesses to pay the right tax from the outset, fixing problems at source and enabling us to make sure more of the money owed is paid. These measures taken together, announced by the Chancellor at the budget, were the most ambitious ever package to close the tax gap, and they will enable HMRC to bring in an extra £6.5 billion a year by 29-30, revenue that will help fix our public finances, get public services back on their feet, and lay the foundations that we need for growth. Now, of course, underpinning all of our activities is an ambitious programme of modernisation and reform. Under this government, HMRC will become a digital-first organisation, and so later this year, following confirmation of Phase 2 of the spending review, we will publish an HMRC transformation roadmap, bringing together our strategic and transformation ambitions into a single public document. It will include details about how and when we will deliver digital services that will mean a better experience for our 35 million individual taxpayers, for agents, and for the more than 5 million businesses in the UK. But we're not waiting for the roadmap to get changes underway. As we speak, HMRC is carrying out a test and learn trial of voice biometrics as part of its interaction with new customers, a new way of making sure customers can get the support they need as quickly as possible whilst keeping their data secure. Voice biometrics strengthen the security of our systems, safeguard customer data, and reduce call times. Customers' voice recordings are converted into encrypted biometric data, a voice print, and stored securely in a data center. HMRC is using the same innovative voice authentication technology, which is already proving successful in many of the major banks and financial institutions globally. And through this current trial, we are offering helpline customers the opportunity to use their voice as their password, to pass security checks faster and more securely. What we learn from this trial will then inform our plans to roll out the system more widely to all of those who want to use it over the rest of this year. Digital service improvements like this will drive greater efficiency as year on year more taxpayers choose to use our digital services. And I've therefore asked HMRC to explore, through legislation if necessary, how we can cut the amount of post we need to send out as a result, saving money and putting our service firmly in the digital era. Now, modernisation and digitalisation are not just important in the tax system, but the customs system too. At the border, we're supporting traders with new technology, reducing their admin burden and speeding up the flow of trade. All exporters and importers are now using the new customs declaration service, an important step toward a more efficient, digital and trader-focused customs system. Our ambition is to support digitalized trade and supply chains, ensure we are controlling the right goods in the right ways, and promote a high-quality customs intermediary sector. And so today, I can announce our technical pilot with the United States Customs and Border Protection to test digital solutions that will speed up processes for US and UK businesses trading goods with each other. In 2024, that trade was worth a combined £115 billion to our countries. Our aim is to make supply chains between the UK and US businesses more efficient through modernising how HMRC systems, international partners and businesses communicate with each other. This new digital pilot will look to use real-time data, such as digital certificates and online identifiers, to make processes faster and more efficient. And through our overall approach, we are bringing cross-border trade into the 21st century, with more seamless integration between the UK and our trading partners, making agile, iterative improvements in partnership with businesses and trade bodies alike. Now, of course, to drive forward change and achieve our ambitions, we also need to change the way we do change. Taking a test and learn approach, informed by our partners in business, is crucial. By its nature, test and learn means not always getting things right first time, but it does mean we can try bold solutions and find out what works for individual taxpayers and businesses in our country. And making sure the tax system works for businesses is crucial to providing them with the conditions in which they can achieve their full potential when it comes to growth. I know how crucial it is to scrap unnecessary bureaucracy, to remove restrictions, to drive technological change, and provide certainty for investments to be made. We are determined to stop unnecessary bureaucracy and regulation getting in the way of businesses' efforts to thrive. And that is why, in January, we decided to cancel plans that we had inherited that would have required employers to provide more detailed employee hour data from April 2026. We took this decision after listening to concerns raised by businesses and stakeholders, including some of you in the room today. And to that end, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge the great work of groups like the Admin Burdens Advisory Board, ABAB for short. The chair of ABAB, Dame Theresa Graham, and other ABAB members are here today, and I want to thank them for their ongoing support of our work and their advice, particularly on the issue of employee hours. We are also determined to drive technological change for businesses, and so last month, we launched our consultation on cutting paperwork and improving business productivity by standardizing and increasing the uptake of business e-invoicing. E-invoicing can bring real benefits to businesses, simplifying processes, reducing errors, and helping businesses to get paid faster. And I encourage everyone in this room to respond to that consultation before it closes on the 7th of May. We're determined to provide certainty and stability for businesses looking to invest. And that is why later in the spring, we will launch a consultation on how we can better support businesses seeking to deliver major products in the UK through more upfront reassurance on their critical tax assumptions. Agreeing that expected tax treatment of larger and more complex projects upfront means that businesses are less likely to undergo the long-running, complex inquiries after the fact, giving them the confidence to invest now and get on with delivering growth. And we will consult in the spring on widening the use of advanced clearances, specifically in relation to research and development reliefs, with the aim of providing greater certainty to businesses planning to invest whilst reducing error and fraud. And of course, as I said, we are determined to remove restrictions wherever possible. And that is why we have listened to the views of organisations, including those in the creative industries, sports and logistics, who want it to be easier to access relief from import duties for temporary imports that support short-term projects, exhibitions or events. I'm pleased to announce today that we will make simplifications and improvements to the temporary admission procedure, extending and simplifying time limits of some goods, removing some restrictions on who can use the procedure and what they can do with their goods, and making our guidance easier to understand. Now today, I've set out a substantial package of measures that will begin to deliver on our ambitions. But I would like to end by focusing on the work of our stakeholders in this room, because it is only through the joint efforts of everyone who works in tax and customs that we will succeed. I know that intermediaries play a major role in delivery against our priorities for HMRC. Tax software is increasingly used to speed up and simplify submissions to HMRC, reducing error and helping to close the tax gap. Tax advisors can help their clients get tax right, reducing levels of non-compliance and demand on our phone and post services. And your experiences of operating in the tax system, particularly of interacting with our digital services, is crucial to help us drive modernisation and reform. You and your clients are an integral part of that future, And as the number and range of intermediaries continues to grow, I'm committed to working with you to raise standards and ensure that your customers stay compliant. Now, to be clear, whilst most advisors play a positive role in the smooth running of the tax system, we've seen examples of dishonest or incompetent tax advisors who cause harm to customers, add to the tax gap, and undermine everyone else who plays by the rules. And so from April 2026, it will become mandatory for tax advisors who interact with HMRC on behalf of their clients to register with us. Furthermore, this spring we will launch a consultation on options to enhance HMRC's power to take swifter and stronger action against tax advisors who facilitate non-compliance. But at the same time, it is my commitment to you that we will provide the digital services that agents need to operate effectively, starting with registration, and at the autumn statement, the government committed £36 million to do just that. I will always seek to act on your feedback where I believe it can provide a net benefit and reduce complexity, and where it will make it as easy as possible for people to do the right thing and for businesses to grow. So as I have made clear today, at the heart of our plan for change is the government's mission to kickstart economic growth. I'm determined that HMRC offers a tax and customs system that leads the way in support of that mission, one that puts as few demands on the time of individual taxpayers and businesses as possible, whilst ensuring that everyone pays the tax that is due. That is the tax and customs system of the future that I am determined to deliver, in partnership with people in this room and beyond. As a government, we will not cease from going further and faster to cut waste and unnecessary bureaucracy and to improve the efficiency of tax collection. We will remain dedicated to raising the revenue the public finances need, whilst minimising the administrative burdens that the tax and customs system puts on you through a modern, digitised service which is fit for the years ahead. So I'd like to thank you all for being part of what we are seeking to achieve. And thank you again for listening, and thank you for having me here today.